oldest son, I will begin our tribute to our mother, Janet Frost. Born in Sheffield in 1931, the fourth of 5 children, she lived in a remarkable 93 years. Today, we come together not just to mourn her passing, but to celebrate a life filled with love, resilience, and cherished memories. From the ages of 8 to 14, she was a wartime child. She watched her father build an Anderson shelter in the garden, lived through the German bombing of Sheffield, and was evacuated when the blast of a landmine damaged the family house. In 1940, she and her siblings were sent to Glasgow, where they boarded a ship. They were to be evacuated to South Africa, a prospect that filled them with excitement. Just before they were due to sail, the SS City of Benares, a passenger liner, was torpedoed by a German U-boat, and 77 of the 90 charter evacuees on board were killed. The authorities cancelled further plans to evacuate children overseas. My mother and her siblings had to disembark and were sent back to Sheffield, where they enjoyed collecting shrapnel after the air raids. After high school, my mother went to Liverpool and trained to be a physiotherapist. Her first job was in Gloucester, where she shared a flat in College Court. She met her husband-to-be at a rugby club party, which was odd as neither of them played rugby. Tom Frost proposed in January 1954, and they married 6 months later. Their first home, marking the beginning of 70 years living in Hynham, was a rented cottage down Lassington Lane, which has since been demolished. In January 1956, I was born in the Gloucester Royal Infirmary. Sadly, my twin brother, Peter, died soon after birth and was buried here in an unmarked grave. My mother's feelings about my birthdays over the years were always mixed with sadness. Mum and Dad bought a plot of land on Maidenhall and built a house which offered luxuries that were missing from their cottage: heating, electricity, and running water. My siblings, Stephen, Penny, and Bill, all arrived in turn, and our family was complete. More about our life as a family in a few moments from my siblings. After our father died in 1989, I asked my mother if she knew what she was going to do. She said, "I've never been outside of Europe, but you and your siblings have all travelled to the ends of the earth. When Rusty, our dog, dies, I'm going to go around the world." 4 years later, she called me. "The dog is dead and I'm off," she said. Before long, she was off on a round-the-world tour with her sister Noel, sailing down the Nile on a felucca with a bunch of backpackers, and she was in her early 60s. Popping into Hong Kong to visit Stephen, visiting her sister and family in Australia, white water rafting in New Zealand, and on safari in the Kruger Game Reserve in South Africa, 54 years after her 1940 trip was cancelled. When I was 31, my mother was worried about me because I'd not been in touch for 2 months. In my last call, I told her I was setting off on a 4-week solo trek in the Himalaya. My call to let her know I was back safely from the trek was a month late. In fact, I could not call as the Chinese authorities in Lhasa had cut all international phone lines following a deadly riot. But when I did manage to call home, my mother already knew I was safe. When I asked her how she knew, she said, "I'm your mother, it's my job." She'd contacted a neighbour whose son was a journalist, who through his connections at Reuters was able to help her track me down. Not even the Chinese authorities could stop her from keeping watch over her children. Chinese authorities 0, Hainan Mafia 1.
loved being a mother and grandmother. She took her responsibilities very seriously. She taught us the difference between there and there, your and your, where to put apostrophes, the evils of splitting infinitives, and, most important of all, learning animal collective nouns. Table manners and knowing which cutlery to use in which order were also vital. We were warned not to greet people with "nice to meet you" or "watch ITV", both of which were terribly common. We grew up in 99 Maidenhall. It was smaller then, and with 3 bedrooms and 4 children, there was not a lot of room. There was one coal fire only, and enough hot water for one bath. We fought over who went first. She claimed not to enjoy cooking, but she did an awful lot of it on a very tight budget. She performed miracles in a kitchen that was smaller than the average SUV. Roasts on a Sunday, which became cold meat on Monday, and a pie on Tuesday, always accompanied with potatoes and 2 veg. She cooked the vegetables to death. Sometimes we would have Yorkshire pudding twice in one meal, once with the main and then with syrup as pudding. Wholesome fare, such as oxtail stew with dumplings, ox tongue, lamb's heart, liver, brisket, steak and kidney pudding, boiling fowl, whitebait, mackerel, salmon on special occasions, apple crumble, rhubarb crumble, bread and butter pudding were after staples, washed down with loads of homemade custard. As a treat, she would make us parkin, flapjack, treacle, toffee and pancakes. We devoured it all. Mum had a massive brass pot she used to make marmalade and copious amounts of jam. To this day, I still can't face blackcurrant jam. She also used this to make Christmas puddings and cake, all from her recipe scrapbook. Occasionally she branched out into spag bol and even, for Dad's sake, her version of a curry, given that she thought parsley sauce was spicy. Mum liked the fresh air and was determined through her life to share this love with us, rain or shine, and it was often rain. She would corral us into going for a walk, up Mayhill, to the Malverns and to Lassington Woods, down Monkey Slope. She loved the Wye Valley and the Forest of Dean. Family summer holidays were spent camping, largely in Anglesey and Wallicombe. Even in her final years, she took herself for a walk to the village shop or round Maidenhall every day. Her parenting style was very hands-off, which we all appreciated, and helped us become the people we are today. She never really got our jokes or understood what any of us did as jobs. When I lived in Singapore, my children would often spend summers with Granny, which she loved and talked about often. She also had the dubious honour of hosting her 3 sons as adults at various times. She put up with us without complaint, and we were grateful for her unwavering support. Family was central to her life, and though she was not the most tactful person in the world, her heart was usually in the right place, and we took away values of decency and kindness, which I hope we have lived up to, and excellent table manners, and knowing that a group of magpies is a parliament, and of starlings a murmuration.
Janet returned to her career in physiotherapy when my siblings left for university and my father retired. She cared very deeply for her patients and gradually rose through the ranks and became a superintendent physiotherapist. She specialised in geriatric care, mainly in the Forest of Dean area, managing around 15 staff at Dilk Hospital. Her work kept her extremely busy when I was growing up. And for much of my childhood, it was just the 3 of us, me, Mum and Dad, as the others had flown the nest. We spent much of our time walking in the Forest of Dean and the Brecon Beacons. Janet very much loved the hills and the beautiful countryside of the UK. I think I was the first of us to experience a family package holiday to Tunisia, I believe, where we had good times riding camels and exploring local markets. And more importantly, visiting the troglodyte caves, which, of course, were used as Star Wars filming locations. Janet loved amateur dramatics and took part in many productions over the years, organised by Hynham Players. She very much enjoyed being behind the scenes, making costumes and sets almost as much as she enjoyed being on stage. Janet was also very practical. She enjoyed renovating furniture for both our house and the church. The garage was more often than not fully occupied by whatever the current project was. She also enjoyed decorating and improving the house and creating the garden she loved spending time in. She worked tirelessly for the church and was the warden of this church for many years. She was very proud when Songs of Praise was filmed at this location. She was also responsible for numerous fundraisers over the years, including the tile renovation project at the back and, of course, the toilet extension. So, when you use a toilet here, it is Janet you should thank. Her memory lives on in this special place and in our hearts.
As a young girl, our mother began to develop her love of handicrafts, learning her skills from her mother and grandmother at home in Sheffield. She became an accomplished knitter, clothing all our family with her neatly made creations over the years. Her dressmaking skills grew with the help of some evening classes and were often used to clothe herself and sometimes me, carefully measuring and altering, then fitting to my body with care, except for the occasional jab with a pin. Her favourite fabrics came from Liberties, bought during occasional trips to London, often with me, both of us enjoying the array of traditional textile patterns and quality fabrics. Homemade cushions dressed our sofa and armchairs, her curtains with linings hung at our windows. In time, she learned to crochet and, later in life, enjoyed patiently following complex tapestry patterns she bought, most of which were turned into more cushion covers or framed, then found a favoured place on a wall. When our father passed away in 1989, Mum lost her partner and travel companion. With her desire to explore the world, she asked me to accompany her. I was available, and Handley, her daughter, who shared some of her interests. And so started many adventures together in Europe and further afield in America, and a memorable trip by train across the country from New York to San Francisco, with a helicopter flight around part of the Grand Canyon to finish. Canada, with its beautiful Rocky Mountains and glaciers, the Far East, where we could stay with my brother and his family. The world of cruising became an option for us to explore, testing the water with a 4-day cruise around the Greek islands. Getting shut out of our cabin when the lock broke didn't put us off. The trial cruise turned into several, most sailing from Southampton for ease. Our mobile floating hotels stopped at many locations around Europe, allowing us to sample interesting sites, explore the culture, taste local food and wine. Even Nuuk, the capital of Greenland, was visited, having braced an awful storm en route. Mum's taking her final journey now, supported by loved ones, and as part of this process, I came across a dress in her wardrobe, treasured for many years. Out of curiosity, I searched online for information about the label, Horrocks' Fashions. It turns out there is a museum holding a collection of these dresses, which were popular in their time, particularly their range of ready-to-wear dresses. I am now in communication with them, and they are interested in receiving Mum's dress. This would delight her, as it would join a few other Frost family items donated to museums over the decades, starting many years ago with a dead green woodpecker.